we ready to go, ladies? Checking to see the live stream first.
Yep.
So we're all good to go? Okay. So good morning everyone, and thank you for attending our ordinary meeting held today on the 22nd of November 2023, and I declare the meeting opened at 9 o'clock. I advise members of the public that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded in accordance with Council standing orders. Councillors and staff are reminded of their responsibilities under their respective codes of conduct, both inside the council meeting and when dealing externally on behalf of council. On behalf of the Whitsunday Regional Council, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet here today and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. And we do recognise their deep and enduring connection to country and extend our respect and gratitude for their wisdom and culture. I'd also like to welcome our councillors here today, WRC staff, members of the public, both present here and on the live stream, and of course the media. So let's get going. Number one on our agenda are apologies and leave of absence. Councillor Simpson. Yes, so Councillor Simpson has moved a leave of absence for Councillor Bronco. Does anyone like to second that? Thank you, Councillor Wright. Any comments or questions? No. Can I put that motion to the vote? All those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried. What are we? 4-2. Add up with my maths today. So next we move on to our condolences, and on behalf of the Whitsunday Regional Council, we would like to acknowledge and pay our respects to the recently departed of our Whitsunday region, and also offer our sincere condolences to their families and their loved ones. And can I have everyone upstanding for a minute? Yes, yes, thank you.
Can we also remember Kenny Craig, who passed away a couple of weeks ago? He's a long-term employee of the Whitsunday Regional Council for over 20 years, and there isn't too many people around town that didn't know Ken, so if you can all think of him in a minute of silence, would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Simpson. And please be seated. My apologies, Councillor Collins. Councillor Simpson.
That's all right. Had a haircut.
Had a haircut. Okay, so next on the agenda is the confirmation of the minutes from the previous meeting, moved by Councillor Jan Clifford and seconded by Councillor Collins. 40, sorry, Gary. Is there any comments or questions on the previous minutes? Of the previous meeting? No. So can I put that we receive those to the vote? All those in favour? Motion is carried 6-0. Next on to item number 4, business arising from the previous minutes. I just want to note that there is a response from the public question from the last meeting to note in those in the minutes. Moving on to item number 5, the mayoral minute. There's no mayoral minute for this meeting. Item number 6, notice of motion. We have not received any notice of motion. Item number 7, deputations. There's been no deputations received for this meeting. item number 8, petitions and questions on notice. So does any councillor have a petition they wish to put to the table? Thank you, Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess in Councillor Brunker's absence, I'd like to put forward a petition from mostly the residents of Bowen. Petition undersigned is about members of the community who feel strongly about being part of community consultation and the input process regarding council's development on foreshore and parklands in their area. That council stop the unnecessary spending regarding proposed extension to the current public toilets in Hanson Park, and to direct council to use the allocated resources where the community needs toilets more, in this case possibly Case Park and Barker Park. Signed by 42 people. From what I can see, 19 signatures are from residents of Horseshoe Bay Road. I'd like to move that the petition be received and referred to the CEO to determine the appropriate action.
You want to second that? Thanks, Councillor Simpson. Any comments? No, we'll put comments and questions on that one. No, we'll put that one. Motion to vote. All those in favour that we receive that petition? All those against? So motion is carried 4-2. So next on our agenda, item number 9, questions from the public gallery. And I do believe we have a question today, so I'll hand over to the CEO for that.
I've received a public question. Unfortunately, the person, Phil Batty, is unable to be here today and has asked me to read the question on his behalf. So when I'm reading it's actually Phil Batty's. The question relates to my complaint to the CCC and the subsequent 3 engagements of ANZIC to investigate this complaint. I alleged in my complaint to the CCC, 1, it is alleged that an unknown subject has knowingly and deceitfully included an altered extract of an external investigation report in a council agenda and presented it as if it was the same exact extract from the previous agenda in order to cover up the false statements made by a councillor in the report. And 2, it is alleged that the subject has also attempted to cover up the amendments to the extract and their own inappropriate conduct by lying about how and why the extract was altered. Given that all 3 engagements to investigate this have now been completed, as advised by Whitsunday Regional Council, I would like to ask the Council how much expenditure has been paid to ANZIC under the 3 contracts. This level of information was released to the public for the initial investigation by PKF in a meeting held on the 22nd of the 2nd, 23, and on the 8th of the 3rd, 23. So there can be no reason to refuse this question. I look forward to your response. Regards, Phil Batty.
Thank you, and a response will be given to Phil Batty.
Advised it goes back to Mr. Batty.
With all public questions, we basically will advise them as soon as possible, but at the next available meeting, we'll endeavour to have it in the business arising.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda are our committee reports, which we don't have any today. So on to item number 11, and item 11.1, our operational plan Q1 report. And I'd like to hand over, we need someone to move that. Thank you, Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Clifford. And Director Jason, can I please hand over to you to speak to that, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good morning, councillors. You have before you the report on the Q1 activity from July to September 2023. The quarterly report presents a summary of the actions and achievements that we've made over the first quarter, and is consistent with the annual operational plan that Council adopted through the budget process for 23-24. There's been a change in format for this report this year. You'll notice there's an achievement section up the front that highlights the key activities during the first quarter, and a table at the back that maps the progress of each of the individual actions. So there are 41 actions in that report. There are 2 of those actions that are not started and 3 that are on hold. 1 action has been completed in full for the financial year, and the remaining 35 actions are in progress and progressing through the financial year. Given it is the first quarter of the year, there's often a range of planning activities that go on for the delivery of those initiatives that are in the operational plan for the year, and certainly that maps against some of those projects that are also referenced in there as well. The report shows the summary of those achievements up front, and I'm happy to take any questions on the content of the report as it's presented.
Thank you, Director Jason. So I'll open that up for questions and comments. Thank you, Councillor Mogan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Maybe mostly just a question to language and about the road, footpath, curb condition assessments. Just here we're talking about assessing to inform renewal and maintenance planning for those of us that don't actually have footpaths and have disconnected networks and stuff. I'm just wondering if this language actually includes installing footpaths, connecting these segments of footpaths that lead to nowhere. And probably for me, my biggest concern is the blind crest over Paluma Road, where we provide no public transport, there is no footpath, there is no solid shoulder, and we have people on push bikes and ever increasing e-scooters coming over that crest. It's obviously gone from rural to more higher density with the reduction in lot sizes. I'm just wondering if this process will lead us to better safety for motorists and pedestrians, or is there something else I should be doing to get safe movement of people and traffic over that hill?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So the condition assessment is looking at existing assets. That will help us to inform our GIS, check if there are discrepancies between the existing mapping and what we pull out from the condition rating. We've obviously got the new directorate that is focused on network planning. That is a big part of their role, is to look at that footpath and shared path network as a network, see what the gaps are, where the improvements need to be made. So it's not a direct improvement immediately. That's a different function through the network planning, but it will inform it. It will help.
Thank you. Through the Mayor. Just in the roads and drainage section in the report, it does say additional resources have been brought in to combine all grading activities, including DRFA funding into a single grading program. So what's the resources that we've brought in to make this happen?
Through you, Madam Mayor. We've brought in a technical officer. He's come from the Isaac region. His main focus is gravel roads. So he's not just looking at the maintenance grading, the resheeting, but also the DRFA work. So combining all 3 of those into one package, just so we can see where they are. I believe at the moment we've got around 12 grading crews in the region. A number of them are on DRFA works, but at least we've now got one person whose focus is knowing where they are, where they're going to go next, trying to get the efficiencies and ensure we're not tracking over roads we've just improved, and get some sense to the program. And from what we're seeing, it's having some good success.
Questions or comments? Put that motion to the vote that we received this report. All in favour? Motion is carried 6-0. Next we're on to item 11.2, development permit for material change of use, short-term accommodation, 16 Alden Court, Hideaway Bay, Coral Sea and Cove Property Proprietary Limited. Moved by Councillor Simpson, seconded by Councillor Collins. Sorry. Oh, okay, yes, so I'll hand over to Director Neil.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a very quick presentation to summarise the 4 applications that we have before Council today. Out of convenience, they have been grouped in pairs. Hopefully I'll be able to get the presentation up. 4 short-term accommodations. 2 effectively are in Hideaway Bay and 2 in Shute Harbour. If we go to slide 3. Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah. Apologies, Madam Mayor, if you can just go to slide 3. 1 and 2 have been switched around.
That's slide 3.
Yep. So, Madam Mayor, that's a map of Hideaway Bay. The 2 subject lands are identified with the blue circle and the dark colour on the lot, Roserick Crescent and Olden Court. As we know, Hideaway Bay is an established urban area and certainly characterised by single detached dwellings, but there are multiple vacant lots in that area. There's approximately 400 residential premises and there are 21 already approved for short-term accommodation and there are 4 seeking approval, including the 2 proposals in front of us today. Olden Court is the first one up for grabs, I guess. 4 submissions received. The matter of short-term accommodation has obviously been discussed in this council for some time and it is consistent with the planning scheme. Certainly the concerns coming from neighbours in this area are very similar to ones that the council has dealt with before and the conditions of approval and the code of conduct and the management regime that council imposes through conditions reflect a response to the car parking. In this instance, 16 Olden Court has more than sufficient car parking, double garage and a carport, as well as an additional area for storage of vehicles on site. Privacy and security concerns are again addressed by the management regime that is imposed and we require a management authority to be close by if they do receive complaints that they can react quickly. The submitters commented on the number of applications within 200 metres of the submitter's house, so we've identified those and again some concerns about operational matters which are considered to be dealt with by conditions of approval. The next one is in Roserick Crescent. It is also consistent with the planning scheme. In this instance, the submitter has made a comment about those short-term accommodations within 300 metres. We've identified those. And again, concerns about privacy and there was also one about impact on garden maintenance where there has been a concern over the impact that leaving the property with limited garden maintenance, when they do come around to give the maintenance, it takes some time and it disrupts the local neighbourhood. And certainly the inference is that if it wasn't used for short-term accommodation, it should be used for longer-term rental. And while that might be the case, council can't guarantee that that would occur. Certainly previous instances and discussion with applicants over short-term accommodation, many of them have purchased the premises and they use them infrequently, whether that be for a regular annual holiday or over Christmas or Easter or whatever. And that basically means that many of them aren't able to go into the long-term rental pool. Notwithstanding that council certainly wouldn't have any concerns if the housing opportunities were turned into the longer-term rental pool.
Sorry, we might just stop there and focus on the one that we've got.
Can I just check with Director Jason, just governance-wise? So we're actually talking about the 11.2 here, which is Olden Court. The Director's giving us a presentation for all the short-term accommodations. Is that, can we actually do that, even though we're moving?
It would have been cleaner to do it one by one, but there's no harm in presenting the information because we're not actually at the point of making the decision. Everything up until the item is debated and voted on is just considered discussion.
Can I ask a question? Yes, yeah, to you, Madam Mayor, to the Director. With the management people, how close are they going to be to that? We'll go back to the first property. Is it a company? Is it an individual?
Through you, Madam Mayor, there is no requirement that it be one or the other, just that the applicant has to nominate a management person that answers the call and is able to attend the site within the limited period. And how they do that is really up to them, so long as that functions appropriately.
Follow it. So is that information given to you in the application? Because I would have thought that that would have been in the conditions, you know, that Fred Smith is the nominated whatever and he lives wherever.
They are required to confirm that a management regime is in place. Sometimes we do get an indication about who it is and where they are. At the end of the day, we rely on an applicant giving us a statutory declaration saying that that management regime is in place.
Thank you.
So just to confirm to the councillors, we're talking about Old Court here. So any quick comments or questions in regards to Old Court? Councillor Wright.
Thank you, through the Mayor. This is probably the first time I will support one of these. I think Hideaway Bay is definitely, I think, probably the right area to do that. But now that we've introduced our local law, like our council is doing everything that we can to try to put some boundaries around these type of applications. So I think we're doing what we can. And I know we have voted against a few in the past and it has never gone in our favour. So we've got to take that into consideration as well. We've tried everything we can, and yeah, I think these sort of applications are going to be coming forward. They're part of the future now, so I think we've just got to try to work with them the best we can. And if there's any dramas, either we need to know or to ring the police.
Thank you. I'd speak to that. I don't think we have tried everything we can. We didn't take this to any test in a court for a real interpretation. This is bound around the word limited accommodation, other accommodation in Hideaway Bay. The definition of the word limited is to have limits, and we don't have any. I think we'll see coming up one person we'll end up with 13 short-term accommodations within 300 metres of their home. We've seen 4 submissions here, each signed by a couple. Dozens of people realistically coming out today saying they don't want to live next door to a hotel. I think Councillor Simpson had a complaint as recently as yesterday. Councillor Clifford's had one within the last 2 weeks. I've got somebody who's been contacting me about one up for public submissions at the moment. But getting back to this report, within it does say conditions require the property manager to monitor the property and must be within 20 minutes from the site to react to any complaints received. Is that information in response to these submitters not accurate then?
Excuse me. I think the manager lives at the Bonnie Road, which is less than 20 minutes from Hideaway Bay.
This is what does say. I put in the address by Google Maps as 24 minutes, but outside that I'm just saying this is saying that the property manager must be within 20 minutes. So if we are going to judge by minutes, but I haven't seen any condition that correlates to that.
Do you want to follow on, Director?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have suggested the conditions. If the applicant wants to come back and suggest an additional period of time, an additional 4 minutes, I'd imagine we would look at that. I mean, the point is that there is a reasonable time to respond to the complaint. 20 minutes is our best idea. If that's unable, we will look at any alternative. Certainly we're not interested in looking at 45 minutes or 50 minutes or anything else like that. But if the proponent thinks that 20 minutes is insufficient to get from A to B, we'll look at it.
Very brief.
Yeah, just to say in relation to, we have put in a local law, but we haven't actually enacted it at all yet. I don't believe anybody's permitted. I don't even know how many people up there have a B&B licence separate from a short-term accommodation licence. But the one thing that I do think strange here is we're talking about 20 minutes in the planning approval, and our local law talks about 30 minutes. So I just think if we are moving forward with these, it may be better to actually correlate these numbers than have someone being in breach of our planning approval and then not yet in breach of our local law.
Thank you. Councillor Collins, can I just remind you to come through the chair, please?
Sorry.
Can I just remind you to come through the chair, please?
I'll see him.
Any other further final comments or questions? Yep.
Just, thanks, Madam Mayor. Just a comment, we've been through lots of these in my time as a councillor, and while they're recommended for approval, like if we don't approve this today, it'll go through the process of the appeals court, it'll be back before us in 12 months' time with a lot of money spent, time spent, wasted money, wasted time, and while it's recommended for approval, I'll support it.
Councillor Simpson. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to agree with you on that one. So I'm going to put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Motion is carried 4-2. So next we have item 11.3, the development permit for material change of use for short-term accommodation, 11 Rosrick Crescent, Hideaway Bay. So moved by Councillor Simpson, seconded by Councillor Wright. And can I hand over you, thank you, Director, to
Thank you, Madam
continue
Mayor.
with your presentation.
11 Rosrick is a 2-storey, 3-bedroom house. It has a carport and sufficient room for car parking on site. Again, I referred to the previous slide, I think it was, keep going, just to, again, identify that Rosrick is closer to the coast than Holden Court. Same principles apply. And again, 2 properly made submissions, again talking about short-term accommodations within 300 metres, privacy, the impact of the garden maintenance that I mentioned, and also the preference for short-term accommodation not to be there, but the premises be put into the long-term rental pool.
Okay, so can I open that up for comments and questions, please?
Briefly, thanks. I think it has to be pointed out here that the submitters are 2 directly adjoining properties. They've had lived experience of this operating as short-term accommodation, and they are here complaining about loss of amenity to their properties. I also put in the address for this property manager, and it popped up on 2 major short-term accommodation websites with reviews from August, September, October, November for people staying there. I'm just wondering if the manager providing council an address, can that address be a short-term accommodation, or should it be the manager's address?
Through Madam Mayor, what we're concerned about is the ability for a response to be made to any complaint that is made, where that comes from, whatever the address, wherever they live. The issue is responding to it within the time period, not being particular exactly where they live.
Okay, any other further comments or questions? So can I put that motion to the vote? All those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried 4-2. Next, 11.4, development permit for material change of use, short-term accommodation, 7 Shute Haven Close, Shute Harbour. Move that, thanks Councillor Simpson. Second, thanks Councillor Collins. And Director, I'll hand over to you to continue
Madam
with your
Mayor.
presentation.
7 Shute Haven Close, 2-storey, does have 5 bedrooms and a double carport out the front. If you can go to the previous slide, please, that gives you an indication where it is. Obviously, following application is at 9 Shoothaven. Again, low density residential zone. It's an established urban area characterised by single detached dwellings. 84 premises in Shoot, 2 premises approved for short term, 4 under consideration, including the current applications. And again, consistent with the planning scheme and recommended for approval.
Have some questions in regards to this one. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. Through the chair, Director Neil, just looking at Google Maps and having a look at the layout of the street, it does seem to be a fairly narrow street, this one. Is there any like on-street parking available?
Through you, Madam Mayor, in this area, Shoothaven is very narrow. Doesn't really allow for 2 vehicles to pass. It services about, quick guess, about 10 properties. This one in particular doesn't provide any parking on the roadway, but nonetheless it's got the required 2 car parks. I should also take the opportunity, Madam Mayor, if I may, I forgot to mention that while this is a 5-bedroom premise, it's only being approved as 4 as per Council's desire to discourage large groups at short-term accommodation premises. So the conditions we are recommending to Council is that we limit occupation to 4 bedrooms.
Thank you, Councillor Clifford.
Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor. My issues with up here is that there are cars and boats and God knows what else parked all along the side of the road. It would probably be, apart from barking dogs, the biggest complaint that I get from that particular area. The roads are almost impassable. So you certainly can't pass 2 cars, and if you put a car and a boat and whatever else out on the street. So I won't be supporting this because the roads just aren't up to scratch, and also the neighbours have a right to the peaceful enjoyment of their property.
Thank you, Councillor Clifford. Director Julie, if someone is having, because obviously we're not having any success with blocking these through the planning scheme, short-term accommodations. If someone out there is having an issue with people in short-term accommodations interfering with their amenity, what process do they have in their favour? Could you just explain that to the board and the public, please?
So in regard to the amenity of the area, so if we're going to speak about parking, okay, if the vehicle is unlawfully parked, either Queensland Police or the local laws team and security officers can issue infringement notices. In regards to amenity, okay, it depends on what the complaint is in regards to the amenity. You know, so if it's short-term accommodation, I highly doubt that you would be able to actually prove that the yard has been in a mess for a week or something like that. You know, so but the amenity with the parking, which I believe Councillor is referring to, is if the vehicles are unlawfully parked, as I said, QPS and local laws can both issue infringements.
The first port of call is QPS and second council.
Either or, same.
Okay, just want to clarify that for people. Did you have
A little bit. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Try to move forward. I know earlier in the Q1 review we mentioned our short-term accommodation guidelines. Our current ones say below is a checklist of the minimum requirements that your property must meet to gain council approval of short-term accommodation. One of those is to have parking in front of the garage. This property does not meet that requirement. There is a conflict between guidelines and the planning scheme, but I look forward to us giving people the actual information they can base their decisions upon. The other thing I'm wondering if we should be adding, if we're going to be rolling these forward, we do have the ability to give for people to get these permits now. Should we be adding a condition that they must seek this permit, or do we sit around for months waiting until we then go back out to them all separately to say now you are required to get our short-term accommodation permit under our local laws, or can we just add it here as a condition?
If I may, Madam Mayor, applicants are now being advised that they will now need to seek a local law. My advice would be not to put it in as a condition, just as an advisory note. We haven't done that as yet on the basis that the machinations behind the local law haven't been set up, but they've come to the table now. So we will provide that advice to not only the applicants in front of us here if they are approved, but we will go back and provide advice to previous applicants as well.
And can I just ask that that before that local law does get enacted, that we have a little bit of a briefing on all on how that actually affects the whole short-term accommodation sphere? Thank you. Any other further comments or questions? Okay, can I put that motion to the vote? All those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried 4-2. And the next on the list is 11.5, development permit for material change of use, short-term accommodation, Shute Harbour Close. Moved by Councillor Collins, seconded by Councillor Simpson. Once again, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 9 Shute Haven Close is 2-storey, 3 bedrooms. Doesn't necessarily have garage or carport, but there is more than sufficient room for 2 cars plus more, and manoeuvring areas right down the end of Shute Haven Close. Again, in the residential zone, the same 4 submitters applied under 7 as did under 9, so the same issues that I mentioned before, operating without approval. That has obviously come to the fore while we have the application. Noise, parking, garbage and lifestyle are all covered by the Code of Conduct and the conditions that we're suggesting be imposed.
Can I open up for comments and questions, please?
Quick discussion on this one. Trying to move forward again. I think in the presentation it said there's only a couple of STAs. There's a large number down there that are under existing rights. Also appears to be quite a few that are under bed and breakfast approvals. I notice we do have a bed and breakfast licence on it, refers to our fees and charges for the amount. We have no mention of bed and breakfast on those fees and charges, so I guess that falls back to unmentioned. I'm just wondering, between Hideaway Bay and Shute Harbour, how many active bed and breakfast licences have we issued in recent times? I noticed there are once off fee. You pay a fee once and you're a B&B forever. Where with short-term accommodation we seem to be looking at renewal. I'm just wondering if this bed and breakfast licence should be joined into your discussions about short-term accommodation licences under the local law.
Thank you, Director. Noted that, Councillor. Any other further comments or questions?
Comments. Just like, I feel for the people next door with these short-term accommodations, but in reality, we've got some of these properties are quite expensive and they need good income to maintain, keep your property. No one talks about the dozens or hundreds of properties throughout the region where there's 5 bedrooms and 5 different tradies staying in the same house. I know heaps of people personally that's the only way young people can afford to live. And that's the other option for these. When you talk about parking, I can take you down to Cannonvale this afternoon and you can point out the properties where there's 6 cars, 6 boats, all on the same property. It's the only way people can afford to live. And also, it's the only way people can afford to pay their mortgage sometime. Most of these properties at Shute Harbour will be $1 million plus. So they won't fit into the $300 a week rental bill. It's a reality of life.
With respect, I'd really love you to tell me where you can get a rental property for $300 a week. With the greatest of respect. That doesn't exist.
Okay. No further comments or questions? Let's put that one to the vote. All of those in favour? All of those against? Motion is carried 4-2. Next item on the agenda is 11.6, the sublease for Garrick Street, Collinsville Community Association. Moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Clifford. And Director Jason, can I hand over to you to give a brief explanation?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. So, councillors, this is a renewal of an existing sublease. The property has been occupied and operating for a number of years. It's a relatively straightforward renewal in accordance with our standard conditions for leasing and subleases. Happy to take any questions, councillors.
Thank you, Director. Any comments, questions? Thank you, Councillor Wright.
Thank you through the chair. Director Jason, so this is for the entire building, this lease? So I know Lions, I think Lions would be downstairs, and community associations upstairs.
Through you, Madam Chair, it is a sublease. We've identified the areas that are there, and it is the lease relating to the community, Collinsville Community Association.
Councillor Wright.
Quick question. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do see the subleases for the building footprint. Just in costs of maintaining the grounds around this facility, who maintains the grounds and at whose expense?
Through you, Madam Chair, we do maintain the grounds associated with the lease. I'm just looking for confirmation from Peter, sitting over there as well, but that is my understanding.
Thank you. No further comments and questions? No, so I'll put that one to the vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried 6-0. Next on the agenda is item 11.7, lease part of land, Bowen Skate Rink, Bowen PCYC. Moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Collins. And Director Jason. Oh, sorry, I thought I saw your hand go up there. So sorry, could we
That's
change that seconder to Councillor Clifford? Thank you. Director Jason.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, councillors, this is a renewal for the Bowen Skate Rink with the PCYC. It is a whole of area lease. We know there have been discussions ongoing with PCYC and council over the whole of the area. Currently, the parcel has a inflated pillow activity associated with it. We have included that in the total lease area. Just so we can manage the whole area. Whether that remains to be used continuously or not is really up for further discussion with the PCYC. We're intending that lease be aligned with our normal standard terms and conditions as well. Otherwise, again, it's a straightforward renewal. Thank you.
That's a question.
Thank you through the chair. Yeah, no, this is good to see. I'm glad it's gone back to the whole of the leased area. Hearing just different discussions around the place, and I know these jumping pillows, it's very hard to get insurance to cover them now. So even at the big pools and those sort of caravan parks, it's very hard. So it's good that they've still got the land, PCYC, where they can possibly look at removing that jumping pillow and maybe putting something that they can utilise, like maybe a half-court basketball court or something that the kids will be able to use. So this is a good result.
Any other further comments or questions? To the vote then, all of those motion. Put that motion to the vote. All in favour? Motion is carried 6-0. Next, we're on to item 11.8.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, I would like to declare a prescribed conflict of interest. Even though I am appointed by council to the housing company, I do hold an executive position.
Thank you. So we just note that Councillor Clifford is conflict of interest and is leaving the room. Okay, so this one is 11.8, the donation of land for 34 Gardenia Street, Proserpine, Whitsunday Housing Company. Moved by Councillor Simpson, seconded by Councillor Wright. And I'll hand over to Director.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillors, this report seeks to donate a parcel to Whitsunday Housing Company to assist with the current housing challenges that are being faced throughout the region. The land has previously been offered under a similar arrangement and it was subject to funding. That funding didn't come forth in a timely manner. We now are of the understanding that the association has funds for the construction of the work, and we're proposing that council support that initiative by way of donating that land for the purpose of affordable housing. Happy to take questions.
Just a comment. Yeah, yesterday afternoon while I was driving, I think it was just heard on the radio that the Tiny Homes project's almost at the funding they need. I think it was 13,000 short of the 700k. So hopefully, yeah, we might have some progress with this. So good news story.
Thank you, Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do agree. This is a small thing that we can do to help in such a big crisis. Just to clarify here, the conditions do include that this land is actually for homeless and women experiencing difficulties. It is being donated to actually benefit those most in need.
Thank you, Councillor Bowman. No other final comments or questions? Can I put that motion to the vote? All in favour? So the motion is carried 5-0. Can we bring councillor?
Nick, can you grab James and Councillor Clifford?
Just to give you an update, Councillor Clifford, that motion was moved in favour.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, so moving on to item 11.9, Special Projects Grant Application Round 1. Moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Clifford. They're on the board. Do we have any comments or questions in regards to these? Motion to the vote, all in favour? Motion is carried 6-0. Moving on to item 11.10, our Sports and Recreation Club grants for November 2023. Moved by Councillor Clifford, I'll second them.
Right.
Oh, sorry, right.
Yeah. And I'll second.
Got him before you. So Councillor Wright is moved. Councillor. Thank you.
Sorry.
Sorry to confuse you, Mads.
Thank you.
Okay, so there, that's up there as well. So any comments or questions? That motion to the vote, all in favour? Motion is carried 6-0. Next, we're on to item 11, CEO.
Through you, Madam Mayor, just withdraw this application on advice from the clerk.
Thank you. So just know that application has been withdrawn.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, to the CEO, should I have gone out for that?
It's been withdrawn, so we don't.
No, that's okay. I just want to make sure that I'm not in strife.
Not in strife, yes. Item 11.12, the sponsorship request 2024 for the Queensland Social Enterprise Conference, Bowen and Whitsunday Neighbourhood Centres. Moved by, which one was first? Sorry, I was reading.
Doesn't matter.
Councillor Wright, Councillor Clifford. I've got eyes in the top of my
I
head.
don't.
Okay, so would you like to speak to that, Director Julie? Thank you.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Councillors, we've received a request for some sponsorship support from the Bowen Neighbourhood Centre and the Whitsunday Neighbourhood Centre. Both the neighbourhood centres, when they had their conferences, it was never in person. It was always via it was via digital. The staff from each of the neighbourhood centres have had a little trip around. They've decided that they're actually going to hold a conference in the region. They're having a day in Bowen and a day in Cannonvale or the Whitby down in the southern region, so that their counterparts in the surrounding areas, particularly to the north, can actually come down and they can all get together and network and that type of thing. So they did ask for 10,000. However, they have found a second sponsor as well. So that sponsor and council, if council support it, will be sponsoring. Thank you.
Questions? Thank you, Councillor Wright.
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. Look, I think this is really great that Whitsunday and Bowen Neighbourhood Centres, excuse me, are working together. And I know, just talking to some of the neighbourhood centres, they do generally go down south to attend these annual conferences. So it's great to finally have one up north. So as Director Julie Wright said, to get everyone, up the north, sort of, come together. So that's really good.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, just for clarity and transparency, I do sit on the committee of the Whitsunday Neighbourhood Centre, but I don't hold an executive position. I do think this is great to try and bring the two neighbourhood centres together with other ones coming up from down south. I do know they've reduced their request, but also in discussions there's the possibility of them using something like Flagstaff Hill. I'm just wondering if Director Julie's department would be able to include some in-kind above and beyond this, or could this just be worked within this figure in your department?
Okay. Councillor, the sponsorship will be as requested here with the recommendation. Should staff come and speak to us and request Flagstaff, that'll be dealt with as a separate act.
Put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried 6-0. I just want to move to adjourn the meeting for a moment. We have some very special guests, a lot of them actually, that have come in a little bit earlier than expected, but that's great. So I might move to adjourn. So all those in favour? Motion is carried 6-0, just so that we can do our sports awards presentation. So we'll leave the live stream on. Yep. And we do have a lot today, so
James.
So council does provide financial support for our junior elite athletes who are participating in a representative competition at a regional, state or national level, and the grant provides the applicants to meet the costs associated with participating in and representing in sport. So today we have a lot, and generally we give a little bit of an overview of everyone, but that will take hours, so we might just go through them one at a time. Are we in order? So Connor Marks, you have sorry, congratulations. Oh, you've been selected for the North Queensland Under-12s AFL Championships. Thank you. I just
Put us
thought I'd keep you on your toes.
Good on you, thanks.
So Nicholas Phillipson, selected for Football Queensland Under-12s Youth Program for soccer and the North Queensland Under-12 Football Championships for soccer. That's you? Congratulations. Okay. Right, okay. Thank you. So you better step forward so I know who you are, guys. So Nicholas Marinino. Marinino, thank you. Congratulations. That's your certificate. There you go. So there, Lily Sainsbury. Congratulations, Lily. That's beautiful. Wayne Scott. Congratulations. So Quade's selected for, I didn't read out Lily's. Lily was selected for the Queensland Under-16s City versus Country Rugby Union Championship. And Quade is selected for the North Queensland Under-12 AFL, Under-12 Rugby League and Under-12 Rugby Union Championship. Okay. Bo Peterson. Congratulations, Bo. So you've been selected for the North Queensland Under-11 Rugby League Championship. There you go, there's your certificate. There's your gift. Cooper Robinson. Well done, Cooper. You've been selected for the North Queensland Under-12 Rugby Union Championships. Well done. There you go. Jamar Tabua. I said that right? Yeah. Congratulations, Jamar. So you were selected for North Queensland Under-12 Rugby Union Championships as well. Well done. Anissa Hellu. Well done. Anissa, that's for you. And you've been selected for the North Queensland's Under-15 Swimming Championships. Well done. Eason Hello. Hello. Have I said your last name right? Hello. Hassan. Yes, thank you. So selected for North Queensland Under-16 Swimming Championships. Well done. Gabrielle Pat. Congratulations. You've been selected for North Queensland Junior Volleyball Schools Club Cup Championship. There you go. Well done, Gabrielle. Liliana Knight. Congratulations, Liliana. There you go. One's for you. So you were selected for Queensland at the National Under-14 Youth Football Championships for soccer. Lainey Hazeltine. There you go. Thank you. Lainey, so selected for Queensland at the National Under-12 Touch Football Championship. Kai Morans. Kai was selected for Queensland at the Australian Junior Dirt Bike Championship. Well done. And Kurt Vella. Congratulations. Kurt was selected for Australia at the Miniature Bull Riding World Championship in Texas, USA. Well done. Congratulations. That's for Australia. So congratulations to all you amazing youth here today, coming in and representing your community in sport within the region. So well done. Congratulations to you all. So thank you very much, guys. I'll get you to head out that way. You've done an
Go through
amazing
this
job.
door and get a quick pic with the mayor, guys. We just go out here, we'll take 1 minute.
And thanks to the mums and dads and carers who came in to support them today as well.
Yeah, he just came back and was like,
Yes.
You can see mine.
I'll just, because it's hard to read these. Well, I can read, when that one's on, I can read it. Sometimes I'm not. Live stream's good? Yeah, okay, good. Okay, so I'll move to reconvene the meeting. Yeah, all those in favour? Motion's carried 6-0. So the meeting is reconvened at 11:29 a.m. 10:29 a.m.
Getting ahead of yourself.
We're just talking about time and
On daylight
time
saving
management.
time.
Yeah, thank you. So the next on the item on the agenda is 11.13, the sponsorship request for the Boeing Fishing Classic. So moved by Councillor Clifford, seconded by Councillor Wright. Okay, so Director Julie, would you like to just give a little bit of an overview for that one, please?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillors, some will recall that the Bowen Fishing Classic was held annually up until COVID-19 restrictions came about. So this will be the first event back for the Fishing Classic since that time. The event organisers have actually requested quite a lengthy list of in-kind support from council, and it is quite lengthy. So having that in mind, I've brought it back to that the council approved sponsorship up to $5,000 in-kind support for the Fishing Classic weekend. That'll be held 9th and 10th of December this year, and that'll include the fee waiver, of course, for the event application. Council will assist with the traffic management plans and the development and submission for such. The equipment, the signage that we use for the road closures for Santa Barbara Parade is closed during the event. 3 staff to help for 4 hours on setup day, which is the Friday before, and pack down day the following Monday. And also, council has always placed the big Fishing Classic banner out the front upstairs at the Bowen Admin building, and also we'll supply and remove the additional rubbish from the 20 silo bins.
Thank you. Director Julie, do we know how, have they started their application, like, to go into the Classic yet? Have they started that? Do you know?
No, councillor. I mean, sorry, Madam Mayor. I haven't seen anything as yet. We did get email through yesterday, I believe it was, could be the day before. They are anticipating up to 10,000 attendees over the throughout the entire weekend. Councillors, I just might point out, it's in the paper, but this organisation is not a not-for-profit organisation, hence like reducing back. Happy to assist, but it's a different take on, pretty similar to the music festival, basically.
Councillor Wright?
Thank you through the chair. So just with the tickets, because usually they sell tickets well in advance. So have they started selling the tickets?
I haven't, Madam Mayor, I haven't seen any councillor yet. So yeah, or much advertisement on it also.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm happy to support this as I know they're trying to get back on their feet. So yeah, happy to support this time. Hopefully it does go ahead and they get some applicants. I am concerned it is a tricky time of year though, just to lead up to Christmas, but yeah, I hope they can get it off the ground.
Thank you. And that was my question as well. Like, I hadn't seen anything, and it's getting quite close for the date, so that's why I was asking as well. Any other further comments or questions? Yes, Councillor Bowman.
Briefly, just when we obviously will know there's a lot of not-for-profits out there doing it tough, and there is a few of these for-profit events that do bring some community benefit with them. But within these grants of whether cash or in kind, is there an ability for us to see financial statements or request financial statements out of it, just so we know if we're the bread and butter or if we're just adding cream on top to any of these things with ratepayers' money?
Madam Mayor, thanks, councillor. Yes, there is, and previously in years past, because the Fishing Classic's been going for quite some time up until COVID, council had requested to see such, and at no time did the Fishing Classic group come back to show council.
Further comments or questions?
Ask briefly, so does that mean as a condition of this that we could ask for some figures before we actually, not that I'm proposing an amendment to this motion, but just saying, you know, is that something we can do?
Madam Mayor, councillor, yes we can, however, given how close we are given this is the opportunity to help the Fishing Classic Committee get the event back, you know, to an annual, you know, event. My suggestion would be that we leave it as it is this year, and should they decide that they're going to come back next year and do the event again, we'll ask on that occasion.
Thank you. So can I put that motion to the vote? All those in favour? Motion is carried 6-0. Next on the item is 11.14, our monthly finance report, moved by Councillor Clifford, seconded by Councillor Simpson. And I will hand over to you, Director Jason, for an overview. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I know this is the point in the meeting when everyone looks forward to hearing about the financial circumstances of the council. Present the report for the period to the 31st of October and really confirm that council still remains in a stable financial position as at the end of October. There continues to be challenges both in the supply of materials and services and also in maintaining the staffing and vacancy rates across the organisation. As a result of that, there is still an underspend in the expenditure that you will see there, both in the operating and the capital. Now that's something that we are working on across the organisation to ensure that we can continue to deliver those activities in the corporate and operational plans, but also those services for and on behalf of the community. So you'll see in the materials and services, there's essentially a $5 million underspend at this point in the year. That's something that we are looking at in terms of how we proceed into the midpoint of the financial year. And also, we're doing our best in terms of the current vacancy rates there within council to supply resources to ensure that we can continue to deliver at the level council expects. Throughout the financial period, certainly you can see that we're continuing to grow and develop. So the community wealth, or the total value of the organisation, is $1.32 billion, and our operating budget remains consistent around that $150 million, and I'll talk to that in the upcoming report. Council continues to benefit in terms of improvements from investment interest as a result of changes in the interest rates, and that's helping buoy some of the cash that we have at this point in time. But we're also sure that we're committed to what's in the current budget program and the capital program so that we can continue to deliver throughout the financial year. You'll see that the accumulation of the capital delivery is still below that line on page 167 of the agenda. We're through the planning cycle now, and I know there's been a lot more rigour through the work that we're doing in the project management framework to present projects that can start and then be completed in a consistent and timely manner, and that's something we'll continue to work on. The sustainability ratios are generally all within target as at the 31st of October. They represent the new target figures that were introduced by the state government this financial year, and you'll see there in the table on the bottom of 167, all of those are within the target range, and there's a green tick in the box that shows meeting those indicators. The other traffic light systems shown around the budget achievement today, you'll see an amber light against the expenditure, and I've talked about that being down from both materials and services and employee costs, and also the capital delivery of those projects are planned and sequenced and put into programs of work for that to get completed. The first half of year rate collections are completed. We've issued reminder notices and we'll start follow-up action on those. Council will also be mindful that we have a number of properties where we have commenced the sale of land actions on for unpaid rate arrears. Those processes continue, and it's pleasing that some of those properties have paid since that action was initiated, have paid in full, so that list is diminishing. but as we get closer to the end of that period and we approach the auction dates, then hopefully we'll start to see more action and activity around those matters being addressed and finalised. The financial statements are attached to that report, Madam Chair. I'm happy to answer questions the councillors may have.
Thank you, Director. Questions or comments? Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Director Jason. Probably just to round up a few things, cover going up to the $40 million in term deposits, those moving over, and just relating that to our total investments now exceeding $144 million. So just a breakdown of what money there is already allocated for expenditure that's just with this backlog in works, what's there for depreciation, and what there is just excess funds.
Madam Chair, I'd have to bring a detailed report back on that. Councillor Bowman, it's certainly an issue that we address at the Audit Committee. There are funds in there that are tied to projects that have been carried forward for both operational and capital purposes, and then there's the cash that runs the balance of the organisation. So I can bring a report back to a future briefing session that details that information to Council. We do that precisely at the end of each financial year. Some of that will need to be worked up to a point in time. So there is unallocated money in there, but the significant portion of it is already allocated and earmarked for particular activities. Yep.
Any further comments or questions? I put that to the vote that we receive that report. All those in favour? Motion is carried 6-0. Next, we're on to item 11.15, the Budget Review 1. Moved by Councillor Collins, seconded by Councillor Wright. And Director Jason, I'm going to hand over to you for a detailed explanation on this one too. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, councillors, you have before you Budget Review 1 for the 23-24 financial year. So, Council adopted this operating budget back in June 2023 for the whole of the financial year. Given this year is punctuated by the local government election in March 2024, the processes of quarterly budget reviews have been changed somewhat. So we will have planned a Budget Review 1 for this point in time, knowing the status that we have at this point, and then we will look to bring a further budget review back around April, May 2024, simply because of the hiatus and the interruption of the election cycle around that budget review process. The budget review is a formalised process under the legislation that allows us to understand the movements in both the operating budget and the capital budget and make amendments to that budget throughout the year. Just remind Council there are no opportunities to take additional revenue at this time. It's not about amending rates and charges. It's really about looking at what's in the operating and capital budget and how they're framed and how they're funded throughout the financial year. The budget review is an exercise where we do work across the organisation in each of the functional areas and look at what the operating budget looks like at this point in time. We make some estimates of the forecast spend for the balance of the financial year, and we also account for what we know as known revenue changes that we already have an awareness of that we didn't have an awareness of at the point in time when the budget was framed. And the best example for that would be the prepayment of the federal government's financial assistance grant. Council will be aware that that was a topical issue at this point in time, and that we received a significant prepayment for that money before the 30th of June 2023. Obviously, we'd done the budget about a week before, and so that money needs to roll forward. And again, that contributes to the enhanced cash position that Council sees. So prepayments for both the federal government assistance grants and for waste account for almost $10 million of that money that's sitting in advance there now. In terms of what's been presented for the overall Budget Review 1, the operating budget, you'll see a net position of just under $40,000, so the accumulated surplus that will carry forward, moving up from $328,000 to about $368,000. That's what we're forecasting for the year end at 30 June 2024. You'll notice movements in the operating budget take that budget up now to, from a revenue perspective, $154.5 million in the operating budget. You'll notice there have been increases in both revenue and expenditure. and they are in around about $2.9 million offsetting to that $40,000. Some of that reflects information that we didn't know when the budget was struck at that point in time, and some of it references what I've talked to Council there just now about the increase in grants that we received in advance. Also, you can see there we're forecasting additional interest income of $1.5 million based on the movement of the interest rates, but also the fact that we're holding a cash position pending getting a number of capital projects and other things completed throughout the financial year. The employee costs and materials and services have moved, and those movements are referenced in that $2.9 million total. The graphs show those particular movements in the operating budget. Fundamentally, when we look at Budget Review 1, it's a lot about looking at the capital expenditure for the organisation and the capital budget. Budgeting isn't a precise exercise, so when we forecast for the end of 30 June 2024, we forecast to do a set number of capital works jobs at a set value. Things change and some of those weren't achieved through the year. So there have been money that's been provided for in the 22-23 budget that's been moved across to fund projects in this current 23-24 financial year, and that represents a significant number of movements. Now, each of the capital items are shown in the table at the back of this report, and I am aware that there are some tables where there'll be multiple lines for the same project. That's about how we present the information in the financials, about what was spent last financial year, what was spent this financial year. A lot of those carryover projects amount to about $8 and a bit million. They really represent projects that were started last financial year that haven't been completed, and that money is now re-provided or carried into the 23-24 year for completion. The number, as a result of some of those deferrals, there'll be other projects that are pushed out into the forward years. So Council will recognise that we do essentially budget for capital over a 3-year period, and where projects may have come in and other projects may have pushed out, they might be pushed into year 2 as in the following financial year, 4, 5, or year 3 projects may have also been increased by year 2 projects pushing forward. We are trying to, I suppose, get to a point where there's a more consistent number in our capital works. We have obviously been through the years of flood recovery and reconstruction work where there's been significant dollars, in excess of 100 million of capital spent in years, and we're trying to see what a normalised capital program looks for us. So in that table at the back, you will see projects where the money has been carried forward. They're not projects that are over budget. They're projects where the budget was provided for last year and it's been transferred into this financial year. And a lot of those projects are generally tracking in alignment with what the original forecast cost was, but some, there are cost increases, I know, referenced in the report there, and I might ask Michael for some help here, is the Collinsville treatment plant, a project of about $1.5 million additional expenditure being added to that simply because of cost movements and changes in the work that was allocated out there. All that money was funded, some of that money was funded last financial year, the balance of it will be funded this financial year. And the movements really don't represent challenges in funding. You can see by the dollars that we have set aside for renewal, the grants and subsidies that we continue to attract, that funding does come at the right time and helps Council to be able to fund those projects, not just solely with Council cash and revenue, but where possible using funding from other levels of government. Probably with that as a detailed overview, Madam Chair, happy to take questions on projects if councillors have them, and myself and Acting Director of Infrastructure will do our best to answer the particular project questions.
Thank you very much, Director Fraser. Councillor Wright, you've got a question.
Thank you, through the Chair. Jason and probably Michael, a bit more specifically. So the lighting, the plant lighting that we've got set up in Hanson Park through to Grays Bay, or to Barker Park anyway, is there any room for movement within this budget review to be able to push that forward a little bit?
Through you, Madam Mayor. At this point in time, we've obviously got the more industrial lighting on hire. We have got the first set of solar lights that are more representative of what they have. They've turned up with the poles themselves and the blocks, turning up late this week. So we'll be setting them up as a temporary to see what people's reactions are. We expect that it'll be positive. So at the moment, that is not a covered project. We do have opportunity to bring things in. We've got an expected budget review around May, I believe. Like I said, we don't have those quarterly ones, as Jason mentioned, with the election coming up. So there is still potential for any existing or new to move where necessary. That project there, once we have the feedback, it will go through the project management framework. So it's more likely it will be set as an opportunity for the next budget for 24-25, rather than bringing it in May. It just gives us that bit of time to really understand what the project is, sign off for the gate documents, and get it to a good point that we're following that framework. That's probably the only real opportunity we've got now. We're coming obviously towards the election.
So with this, because it is existing, does it fall under just a renewal project rather than a whole capital project? Like,
Through you, Madam Mayor. So we've got a bit of a mixture. You've got some existing lighting, which would be a renewal or upgrade, and then you've got some which are new. Obviously, we have weightings as far as our asset management. So the renewals are what we want to do, is to keep things fresh and up to date. Then your upgrades and your new are slightly lower weighting, not quite as high priority, so that we manage our finances as best as possible. So this project being a combination, really we're looking at the whole scope, and that has some impact on its weightings. However, if obviously there's a desire both from the public, from the people around the table, then there's every chance it will get put up as a project for the next budget.
if we could consider that. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other? Sorry, we don't take questions
Just
from the
want to know
public.
how much it costs.
Don't take questions from the public. Councillor Bowman.
Thanks. Maybe getting back to the report a little bit, when we drop $3 million into the capital works reserve, where does that come from? And this month's monthlies has staff costs running 1.8 under budget. This review is just putting about a 1.3 increase on staff. So how does that update work with where we are behind in staff, or does that work into the whole costs? Thanks.
Yep, so I'll take the first bit first, Councillor Bowman, through you, Madam Chair. The funding comes in and out of the capital works reserves that we hold for the different levels of infrastructure. So what we do is look at the funding options that we have available to council and try and present the most advantageous. The money in the reserves may be from grants, but it may be our own cash. The general philosophy is that we will spend the external sources of money first, and we will spend our own cash essentially last. The cash comes from a number of areas. So there will be cash in there that's funded from the money set aside each year for the asset replacements, and that's generally, as Director Michael just said, around those replacement type assets, so things that are in place rather than new. New asset generally can be funded from grant monies, but they also might be funded from developer contributions if they're trunk infrastructure. So the bucket of money in there is represented by a number of, essentially, different components, some of which comes from local government infrastructure charges, some of which comes from cash that's been set aside over the years to fund replacement assets. We do have a detailed breakdown of how each project is funded. I'm happy to show you that at a future point in time. In relation to the resourcing for the organisation, yes, you are correct, there is an underspend in employee costs at this point in time. That's been influenced a lot in the first period of time the vacancies that we hold in the organisation, and our turnover rate is a little high at this point in time. That's representative that there is almost a full labour market if you follow the national economics. we're not getting lots of competition for the vacant positions that we put out to the market, and we're trying to look at recruitment and retention strategies that might assist in helping us attract people as a great place to work and live in the Whitsunday region. The additional funds that are sought in the budget for the 23-24 year are really making sure that we have the appropriate resourcing in place. They do represent some changes that may flow through in relation to council's discussions around the future certified agreement in terms of the employees' wages and conditions. So the current certified agreement expires in February 2024, and we're currently working and discussing with the unions what an appropriate way forward might look like, and obviously there will be implications associated with that. In addition to that, it's more formalising the wage structures that are in the organisation, and there have been a number of movements between the capital budget and the operating budget as well in terms of staff and wages movement. So overall there is an increase in the labour costs for the organisation, but we're trying very hard to manage those at this point in time through the budget process. I'm not sure if CEO wanted to add anything else, but that's my response.
Go on to projects. I think most of you know I'll be following a lot of this up by email. Just a couple of questions here. I just list them all off and go through. It's just the rollback of a number of the works. Cantervale Transfer Station, I know there was some resumption of land at the back and a lot of stormwater work going on there. It's just been pushed back. Cantervale Lake Stage 4, just the 50k that's been moved forward. I'm just wondering if that's money that was allocated for community facilities that's actually being shifted into the maintenance work, which is the dredging, or if we're maintaining a full improvements budget there. And the last little one is just 5,000 that popped up for the Wake Creek bollards. Why just 5,000 of the budget has popped forward? Thanks. Just off your cuff, thanks.
I was just making some notes there.
But I am happy to take them on notice, obviously.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So the transfer station, Cantervale, the team there have got to a stage where they've done as much as they really can at this point. There are future works that are proposed involving sewer, stormwater. That's why the funding has been moved around. So it's not complete. It's just current stage is they've improved it, as you said, the area at the back. They've taken that. We've used like road millings from reseal packages to fill that in. So it's been a good result. The Lake Stage 4, so the dredging, I believe, is under the operational budget. It's nothing we can capitalise under that, so that's not part of those funds there. The transfer of money is mainly just looking at that point in time, what are we going to achieve in this financial year. At this stage, it's expected that it's community consultation just to go back through and ensure we're doing the right thing. We've obviously got a bit of a master plan from quite a few years ago. We want to make sure we're still heading in the right direction and we've got the right focus. So again, the movement of dollars to make sure that we've got something to work on, but we've got the backup for what the next investment may be. The Wake Creek bollards, I will have to take on notice. I don't know about that one. I expected there's only $5,000. It's only to just do the investigation, get the plans drawn up, do the consultation, because we, last time we did some bollards in Dingo Beach, we got a bit of feedback. So similar deal. I expect it's to just confirm we're doing the right thing by the people around. I'll get some more information.
Any further comments or questions? So can I put that motion to the vote then? Okay. Motion is carried 6-0. Next we're up to item 11.16, policies review. Move that one. Seconded by Councillor Clifford. And I'll hand over to the CEO. Just give a little bit of an overview on that one, thank you.
Mayor, So this is basically a policy review. We're working through some of the key policies that particularly impact on the councillors as part of this process. We have a number of the policies in front of you and have gone through a process of rigour. We've been looking at how the policies are prepared by both the department and also by LGAQ. I'm trying to get some standardisation in relation to them. But they deal with obviously the confidentiality. They give some benefits where there has been some changes in relation to it, the roles in development matters. Probably the biggest one was the removal in relation to some of the elements that are doubling up with ECQ at the moment. So they're here for council to consider going forward. If there's any particular questions on the policies, I'll direct them to either Jason or James.
Does anyone have any questions? Councillor Wright.
Thank you. Through the chair, Director Jason, so just the last one, the caretaker period policy, so that will be revoked. So there'll still be a policy just directing to this the fact sheet? Or how will people see the fact sheet?
Yep. Thanks, Councillor Wright, through you, Madam Mayor. So essentially the content of the policy has since been drafted into different pieces of legislation that provide the head of power for us to follow that as a way of doing things. The local government department's fact sheet has summarised that information and what those changes represent. So the current policy as it stands is quite a duplication of the effort. Now, a lot of that came out of the Belcara reforms, which started pre-2019 into 2020, and the legislation has been changed throughout that time. More recently, as in last week, I think there was another amendment to local government legislation, and we'll provide councillors with an update on that. But the intent is not to have the policy duplicate effort. What we will do and work with the Queensland Electoral Commission is publicise that information around caretaker, and we will certainly provide a further information session in the lead up to the election to councillors about what our current policy stance works. One of the policy matters that was in that policy that relates to the operation of the organisation is that issue around staff intending to stand as candidates for councillors, and we're working with the CEO around drafting a guideline for how that will be managed inside the organisation. There is already guidance both from the Department of Local Government and from the Queensland Electoral Commission on that particular issue, but we will formalise our own policy at an organisational level around how those matters are dealt with. But again, the guidance in the legislation has moved somewhat, and some of that's been provided for, particularly around that issue. The intent is to try and simplify the policy framework that we put to council, and as the CEO said, standardise where possible with what the intent of the legislation is through both the department and the LGAQ to try and simplify the processes that we have inside council for all things, not just around the elected member policies. Happy to take any further questions as well.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Director. I think most of all of these we workshopped through, had feedback in before. The only thing that's sort of been redrafted since then is councillors' dealings with developers, lobbyists and submitters. I certainly see it's an improvement from the current policy. I think it does fall back on the standard templates a bit more. I know we'll go into further clarifications here, but one thing I think we all like to do is mentioned here is that councillors may interact with developers in the pre-application stage to promote the benefits of developing in their local government area and encourage responsible and appropriate development. I think many of us have people reach out, things like that. I think Director Neil knows just recently a developer was doing that with me, and I had to go through this whole rigmarole of saying we can't meet until an officer's present, everything like that, just for a simple pre-discussion. So within this policy, we have this sentence now saying we can do that, but then we also have clause number 1, which says if a developer or lobbyist wants to discuss a development matter with the councillor, this should be referred to the office of the CEO, nominated officer, to diarise a meeting appointment. And so on and so forth. So again, I'm just having a bit of struggle. There's some wording here that is should rather than must, so on and so forth, and may, but I'm just at a loss of where I tip over this point. Happy for it to be discussed further, interpretation of policy, which we all know is very open, but just what's before me now still leaves me between a rock and a hard place.
Do you want to take that one, Director?
Well, I can, but I thought the boss might want to.
Thank you.
So I think it is quite a confusing exercise because it depends on your personal desires to meet, on the developer as to where they are in their process going forward. But as a general rule, you're there to try and talk to a range of people in the development industry to promote the region, to encourage development to occur. So if you're talking about broad components, that's there. As soon as they've got full-on applications and they're already ready to pretty much lodge, that's where I would say there's a little bit of need for you to be a bit more cautious, and that's probably when if we're suggesting that having an officer with you during those discussions is quite valid. Obviously, once an application has been lodged, it's pretty clear through that process. And obviously, the other point is between when it goes on public agendas and when you make your decision, you actually are entitled to go and seek further information to aid you in your decision-making process during that time from either the developer, the submitters, or other sources. So it probably does depend on where it is. Probably also depends on how open the developer is. They could say we're still considering the application, lodge it the next day, but you have to take them on some degree of face value. So that pre-lodgement, my view is you're allowed to talk to them, run through their issues, talk broadly about the proposal. If it starts getting down to very specifics, probably triggers that they're getting very close to an application, and I'd probably suggest at that point it would be useful to have an officer with you to aid you through that process. But there is a fair few mays as well, so it is up to you individually as to how you feel. If a councillor doesn't feel that they wish to go to that meeting, they are quite entitled to decline that meeting through that process as well. So I'm not sure it's clearer, but in that pre-lodgement, definitely before they've lodged, you do have some ability to talk to them in a much more open sense.
Follow on just for the process of reporting about pre-lodgements and things, so we do know where we're at. There's in here just that a council may report pre-lodgements and so on and so forth. So I was just wondering if we had a template or something working out towards how councillors will be notified of when these developments are approaching council, just so we may be aware of pre-lodgement meetings and where we are stepping over these boundaries.
And I get your point there, actually. Like, how do we know as a councillor that they've lodged?
Madam Mayor, look, essentially you don't. You know, we have applications that we've had for 18 months because we're waiting for information to come in. There are instances where we've started negotiations and between my team and the applicant, they're still working on fine-tuning the information, and that could take 12 months. So my comment is twofold. One, the policies are really there for the protection of council, and secondly, if we keep the communication channels open, then you know there will be some backwards and forwards. It might be just an email to say what have we got, what haven't we got. It is very difficult to be exactly precise on timeframes when we're in that negotiation phase with the applicant, but certainly council laws should be asking the person they're talking to, where are you in the approval process, to get a good idea about where they are to take Warren's comments on board.
Briefly to raise it here before we put it into print, it does say reports on pre-lodgement requests and scheduled pre-lodgement meetings are provided to councillors. Do we want to put a weasel word in there, or I'm quite happy to get this information. I just don't want to put the onus upon the department to do extra work. That's might probably be across anyway. It's on agenda page 223 at the bottom under pre-lodgement. reports on pre-lodgement requests and scheduled pre-lodgement meetings are provided to councillors.
I actually think that probably should be on request. So it's not coming to you all the time, every day we get this through the process. So maybe the words on request there may just give a little bit more guidance. And again, if you're about to meet with a developer, you know that it's about a particular area, I encourage you to talk to the planning and say, where are we, what's happening in relation to it, what stage are we at, has there been a pre-lodgement, etc. So that might allow them to
Councillor Clifford. Sorry, yeah, I didn't realise you, but I'll let Clay have it. Was that a carry on?
Yeah, just to follow on to ask whether we should open up the motion a little bit just to allow minor administration changes to the policy.
Councillor Clifford, did you have a question while I just change that a little bit?
Just through you, I've often thought it might be a good idea of when an application is lodged, and I'm not saying we do it every day, but maybe once a month, there's just a deal out to councillors, etc., and sort of saying that this has been lodged, so at least we know what people are talking about, because usually it'll twig, you know, oh, I've seen that somewhere, and make you sort of think a bit more about meeting or getting involved. So maybe just on a monthly basis, it wouldn't be that hard, would it, just to sort of say that, you know, it's been an application for a wigwam down on somewhere or whatever?
I would have thought it's going to be reasonably straightforward to do that on a monthly basis, Madam Chair.
Councillor Simpson.
Just some comments. I think we're reading far too much into this. Like, you know if you're in the right or the wrong. So if we ask for every development application to come through, whether it's every day or every month, we need to know every submitter that puts a submission in. If the policy is a broad one for developers, submitters are exactly the same. I just think we're reading far too much into this.
I'll comment briefly on that. I think it does come down to discussion with people. I'm on planningalerts.com that tells me what developments are coming up here, and I think the thing is to discuss with people. But sometimes, especially when they're just members of the public or specifically our constituents who contact us with concerns, and we say we're not allowed to talk to you about it. That's something difficult I find as a councillor. I have no problem with the developer to say it's in everyone's best interest for us to follow the rules, because you've got to do it with every other part of this process. So there is no issue there. My issue is when you're talking to the common person, a lot of this is out of their area of expertise and they're really just reaching out to you. But I'm happy to abide by the policy. I think we've got to have the rules in place, and we should be very careful when we make those rules because we have to live by them.
Do you want to comment on that, Director?
Madam Chair, just look, the policy isn't about saying to the councillors you're not allowed to talk to anybody. What it's saying is if you want to talk to them, just protect yourself as much as anyone else. Take a staff member, get some notes, because, you know, on a daily basis we get information fed back to us that they've been told something or they've heard something that's completely out of whack. So it's, I would say, a very good opportunity to make sure that what is spoken is clear and there is evidence of that. It's not about saying you're not allowed to talk to anyone. So.
Thank you. Councillor, sorry, Director Jason.
Madam Chair, just to recommend that we put subject to minor change into the proposed resolution that's in front of council. To define minor change, it's really about something that doesn't change the intent of the policy, but simply sharpens what we're trying to do. And as the CEO has put forward in that particular amendment, as per request or subject to request, then it doesn't change the intent of the policy. It just tidies up and tightens what the policy intent is to do. That makes it clearer for council.
What is minor change or
Subject.
could we have
Subject. Changes.
I can sort of
Thank you.
just within, just Councillor Wright, just within this policy, there was a requirement that reports were given to us on pre-lodgement requests. So any developer that requested a meeting or any scheduled pre-lodgement meeting. So I was just thinking, rather than Director McGaffin's department having the onus of doing this and supplying this all the time, that if it was just opened up, that we may request it, or that it can still happen. I'd have no problem with it happening, but I just don't want it written in policy that we're creating more work for the department that may not be of benefit to anyone.
So, Councillor Wright, all we're looking to do is I'll actually stand up. This this sentence here, all we're saying is that, don't keep moving up, not that talk. To councillors on request, that's the minor change we're talking about. So rather than us preparing a report on everything, it's only when requested by councillors.
That's what happens now, doesn't it? It's only on request.
Yeah. Councillor Clifford?
Yeah, I can request, but I don't know what I'm requesting because I don't know that it's been lodged or is about to be lodged. If you know what I'm saying. How can I request something from you that I don't know that I might have heard about in the supermarket?
Well, I'd suggest you talk to me and not worry so much about people in the supermarket.
I'll get some of my better information from. We need to vote on this, please.
Okay, so can we go back to recommendation, please? So can I move that we accept that recommendation? All those in favour? Motion's carried 6-0. So item number 12 is officers report confidential matters. So I'm going to move that. Right. We go into a closed session and seconded by Councillor Collins. All those in favour? I moved it. Seconded by Councillor Collins. All those in favour? Motion's carried 6-0. So we will be pausing the live stream. So the council closes the meeting to the public at 11:16 a.m. So just for the public, we're on to item number 12.1, our provision of banking and financial services. Can I put that, moved by Councillor Clifford, seconded by Councillor Wright. And can I put that motion to the vote? Oh yes, sorry, yeah.
Thank you. Through the chair, Director Jason, just so the public are aware, so I know particularly in Collinsville there's only one bank out there, so the credit union. Just to be sure, I guess, that we are still, there is a term deposit out there, that will still be intact. We're not removing that at all, like that will stay where it is.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Through you, Madam Chair. Look, Council changing the proposed change of banking services to a different provider is something that we look at holistically. Pardon me, looking at the transactions, but we are committed to working with the banks that are within our region and within the small communities in our regions, and we understand the importance that banking services provide, both at a social and a commercial level for each of the communities across the region. So we'll continue to work with the banks that are within our region. The transactional basis will move, but our intent will still be to manage and work with the communities and the funds that we hold on behalf of communities to maximise those returns. Thank you.
Director, any other further comments or questions? Councillor Clifford.
If I might, through you, Madam Mayor, to Jason and your team, there must have been so much work in all of this, and you just need to be commended. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Clifford. So can I put that to the vote? All those in favour? Motion is carried 6-0. Next, we're on to item number 13, which is our late reports, which we do not have any today. So that brings us to item number 14, matters of importance. So would any councillors like to raise any matters of importance? Thank you, Councillor Collins.
Yeah, just through Director Julie, I've received an email, we all received an email in regards to the swimming enclosure. Are you able to just verify what's happening with the enclosure at the moment for the public's benefit, please? Because I can't tell anyone what's happening.
Councillor, so the request for quote went out. We had no submissions, so it will go back out again, and it'll have a greater net on it. So we're going to go towards Mackay and outside the region, and hopefully we'll get some submissions and be able to move forward with it.
We have all the materials, yes.
Oh yes, all the materials are here and stored at the depot at this point in time, so we just need to engage a contractor to actually do the build.
Further matters of importance today? Director Julie, can we just have an update on the bats?
Yeah, yes.
Yep.
Please. Madam Mayor, councillors, so as of yesterday we've stepped back away from the flying foxes. It does appear that they're crashing, so once they have started to crash, we have to step away because they've got we've got the babies. Look, there is numbers there, but there's not huge numbers at this point in time. In a couple of places where they were just determined not to leave, but once we're past that crashing period, we'll go back in generally. They will leave in the next probably mid-December, as they did last year and previous years. So hopefully they will, on their own accord, once they're finished with crashing. If they don't and they're ready to fly again, we'll go back in and push them back over the hill again.
And just a follow-on question to that, there was a guarantee, I believe, in that contract.
Yeah.
So how does that work with the contractor as far as what we had to do and what they had to do, and that guarantee clause?
So the guarantee amount hasn't been paid as yet and won't be paid. We've paid the initial payment, okay, and while we've got the flying foxes are still here, we haven't paid the extra guarantee figure.
Thank you. Councillor.
Thank you. Through the chair, look, the feedback that we have received, the Mayor and I were at a meeting in Collinsville the other day, and the feedback from the community, the people that live there, they're really grateful. They know this is not an easy fix, and it's happening, you know, throughout Queensland, throughout the state, probably throughout Australia. But yeah, look, they are thankful for the work that we're continuing to do. So yeah, I just wanted to thank yourself and the staff for working through this. I know this is not an easy job. Early starts and late at night. So yeah, thank you very much.
Councillor Bowden.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Discussed this at length, but as far as I knew, we had a large number of little reds that would have been leaving naturally anyway. I think we've got pretty much exactly the same number of blacks there as we did before we spent over $200,000 of ratepayers' money. So within that motion, there was that this large expenditure was the last fact. I think there's been a lot of ratepayers' money spent on staff, new materials, people out of region. I guess they have to be accommodated, or out of Collinsville have to be accommodated there to do these early morning extra shifts. I'm just wondering, above and beyond what we did give to Biodiversity Australia, how much ratepayers' money has been spent and how much will continue to be spent after what was a last resort action, which has already had, we saw the shift in figures in this budget review. Thanks.
Madam Mayor, Councillor, I couldn't give you an exact figure. There was a little bit of accommodation, not a great deal, because most of the staff have continued to go from Bowen, start early, finish early type thing, just do their standard hours. Yes, the week that they were there was the 2 weeks, I'm sorry, that BA were there. We did have staff go up, learning how to disperse. We have, council has bought ammunition, the pyrotechnic guns and that sort of thing, so that we can continue should we get them back again, you know, in large numbers. The large numbers have decreased immensely. I think what councillors need to remember is flying foxes are a health issue, okay? They are a problem. When they're there, they're a problem. And yes, okay, we were only going to spend X amount of dollars, and we have spent that X amount of dollars on the group, the consultants that came to remove. We've had the extra to do the maintenance. But again, we have to come back to the fact that it's a health issue, and we have people's health in Collinsville to look after and to ensure that nobody gets sick from them.
Thank you, Julie. And also just to add, like, part of agreeing to this, going down this avenue of Biodiversity Australia, it was discussed that Biodiversity wanted us to follow up with the maintenance program. So that's exactly what we're doing. We're following their guidelines, and this is all part of that program.
Just one quick follow on there. I've looked into this. The Queensland Health Everything I've seen says no touch, no risk with flying foxes. Do we have some information that's different to that provided by Queensland Health?
I'd have to check on that, but we all know that flying foxes have the ability, that people have the ability to catch the illicit from flying foxes. So the more that we have in a community, in people's backyards and with the flyovers over the houses every night and over the playgrounds and over the schools and over the township, there's the risk. The more flying foxes that are in the township and across the township, the greater risk to somebody within the community ending up with the illicit virus. So I don't know whether we have any more, but that's a fact, that the more flying foxes there is, the greater risk to illicit virus there is.
Councillor Wright?
Yeah, look, I just think that comment's out of line. And you don't have to have the last say on everything.
Councillor, would you like to?
Yes, thank you, through you, to Director Julie. The affected properties, and, you know, and I can't imagine the noise and all the rest of it. But do they have very large, you know, fruit trees in their backyards and things like that that would be attracting them? I know I've got them in my mango tree at the moment, but that's only one tree, and it's a very small little group. Also, cockies like it as well. But, you know, it is one of the ways to get rid of them out of people's backyards, to remove the trees that attract the bats.
Madam Mayor, Councillor, there is a difference from them roosting to them feeding. So they'll come in and they'll feed wherever the food source is, and they'll come in through the night, feed in those trees, then they leave to roost through the day. So they're not necessarily roosting in the fruit trees. They're roosting in pine trees, and they're roosting in the biggest trees that there basically is. Oh, they were, like we're down to, you know, much smaller numbers now. But the trees that they were roosting in were the biggest trees in Collinsville. So we cut down those trees, then they're going to start to roost in the next lot of trees that are the next size down, and it'll continue and continue before we have no trees left in Collinsville whatsoever. But there is a difference from them feeding at night time. They'll fly out of their roosts and they'll go and feed through the night in wherever the food source is. At this point, it's mango trees around this area. Then they'll leave those mango trees on daylight and be home into their roost trees, wherever that may be.
Thank you, Director Julie. And just to mention that this recently in Brisbane we advocated to the LGAQ to look at this issue a little bit more intensely, because at the moment the Queensland Government have a lot of funding out to learn to live with bats, which then obviously Councillor Bayman is saying that they're not a health issue if they're encouraging us to learn to live with bats. So we have also advocated to the LGAQ as well to try and get more funding to be able to address this problem for the communities. It is a big problem for the communities, but I think also moving forward for next year, we need a little bit of workshopping around that one. Any other matters of importance today? Did you want to carry on for that?
No, I'm over.
You're over that one?
Over that.
Okay, so Councillor.
Thank you. Through you to the CEO. Some time ago, Mr. CEO asked that a letter be sent to the supermarkets to put those lock devices on the trolleys so that they can't, like they've got them in Noosa and Port Douglas, etc. The number of shopping trolleys around my patch and further down the road, they're just breeding. They're everywhere. I was with Director Julie the other morning down at the VMR boat ramp, and they were down there. It was like a little modern sculpture. They shouldn't be out on the road. They shouldn't be left at the taxi ranks and the bus stops and things. And there is this device that they can do where they electronically corral them into their, which would save them money. You know, fortunately, the rubbish bin situation is improving greatly, and if we can get the trolley situation under control as well, that would be really great. So maybe another reminder, pretty please. Thank you.
Any final matters from comments? So I believe that brings us to the end of the meeting. So I declare this meeting closed at 11:37 a.m. Thank you everyone for attending, and thank you to everyone on the live stream for watching.